This video will include the practice questions from the back of the Week 5 booklet. First one, you're asked to solve for L. And you'll see that L is together with 4 pi squared, all divided by g, and that equals t squared. We need to solve for L. So when L is in an expression that's a fraction, it's going to be your job to take that fraction and clear it. So here we go. Let's clear the fraction by multiplying both sides by g. Multiply the right-hand side by g, the g's will cancel. As long as you also multiply the left-hand side by g, you haven't broken anything about the laws of math. So t squared times g equals 4 pi squared times L. And you want to solve for L. And L right now needs to get cleared away by the 4 and the pi squared. You divide, because they're all multiplied, by 4 pi squared to both sides. You haven't changed anything except the way the equation looks. You're left with an L equals capital T squared times that by g divided by 4 pi squared. And that question is now solved for the indicated subject, the subject being L. You could also solve it for g if you like, but the question asks for L. Part B, you're asked to solve this equation for the NP. So first of all, we need to get rid of the NS on the bottom, because that's interfering with the NP squared on the top. So if you take the NP squared, which is now divided by NS, and multiply that by NS, on the top, really it's over a 1. Do the same thing to both sides, then you've changed nothing with the value of the question, except for the format. So the multiply by NS is going to go on the top, on the left. When you write down what's left, you have NP squared, you have NS times ZP all over ZS. You want to get NP by itself. NP right now is squared. Do the square root of that. Do the square root of that. And nothing changes as long as it's the same to both sides. The reason you did the square root was so that you could cancel the root sign in the square, and that'll leave you behind with the NP, the subject by itself, and that equals the square root of NS times ZP over ZS. And that one's done. The variable in question, NP, had a square in the question. You can anticipate there'll be a root in your answer. Question 2 is a formula for current, and the formula has current equals 746 times the horsepower divided by the voltage times the efficiency. E is the voltage, EFF is the efficiency. We are asked, first of all, to solve the formula for horsepower. So what would be the horsepower? Right away we're going to isolate HP. To do that, we need to get rid of the fact that it's divided by the E and the EFF. So if you write down the original question, HP is in brackets because it's 2 letters, but it's only one concept, one idea, and the E is the voltage and the EFF is the efficiency. We want to get the HP by itself, so we're going to do the opposite and multiply by the voltage and the efficiency on the left and the right to keep it even. So we're going to have the E times the EFF on the other side. Now we have no longer a fraction. We have 746 times the horsepower equals the voltage times the efficiency times the current. We want to solve for horsepower. We're going to divide by the 746 to both sides. So the horsepower, the E times the EFF, the efficiency is usually a percentage, times the current divided by 746. So if you're asked to go further with an actual number type question, so a motor that has 38 amps, which is the current, a 240 volt, 220 volt circuit, which is your E, and the efficiency is 90%, find the horsepower. So you would solve all those numbers. You would take your horsepower and you would do the voltage, which was 220, your efficiency, which is 90%, which you write it as 0.9. Your current was given as 38 amps, and you would fill that all in, divide it by your 746. So get your calculator going, plug it in, do the math, and see what you get. You would get approximately a 10 horsepower motor. 10.09 is your horsepower. Now question 3. Question 3 is the first one in the practice section where the letter that you're asked to solve for appears twice. It's in the equation in 2 different spots, and that's not happened yet in the practice. So to do a question like this, it's a different approach, slightly tweaked. Your first approach is going to be to put all the terms that contain that letter in question together on one side of the equation. So they are all together. That's great. The next step is going to be to factor out the letter that you want, the one letter you want to solve for, out of both terms, which is basically like dividing it out. So you have to work backwards in your head. You take 6AS and divide it by S, you're left with 6A. And if you take 6SH and divide it by S, you're left with 6H. Now double check. S times 6A gives you 6AS, and S times 6H gives you 6HS. Now once you have the letter you want factored out of both terms, it's now only going to appear once in the equation. So you can then get it by itself by getting rid of everything else. I'm going to rewrite what's left. The surface area of this 6-sided figure is going to equal the dimension of one side times 6 times A plus 6 times H. Now I want to solve for S. I'm going to divide by what S is multiplied by, which is 6A plus 6H. As long as I do it to both sides, you've kept it even. So I'm going to cancel this. I'm left with S, and you're going to cancel nothing on the left, and that's going to be your expression. To solve for little s, it's going to be the surface area divided by 6 times the value of little a plus 6 times the value of little h. And that's when you have a letter that appears more than once. And the last question, to solve for I. You'll notice that I right now is in a term that is both negative and with an R. So the first thing you ought to do would be to get rid of the EX. Bring it over the other side and get it semi-simplified. So EC minus EX would equal a negative R times I. You're going to want to get rid of both the R and the negative sign. So if you divide this by negative R, that would cancel, and divide the left by negative R, you will be left with I equals the EC minus the EX over negative R. Now the only problem with this answer is you cannot leave the R on the bottom as a negative number. So we're going to take every term in the expression on the left and multiply every single term by a negative 1 to change it. So a positive EC times a negative is going to become a negative EC. A negative EX times a negative is going to become a plus EX. On the bottom, a negative R times a negative 1 is going to become an R. And that changes your format to be proper. So now in the question, if you're asked to solve for the current, and you were, and it tells you that your EC was equal to 10, and your EX was equal to 400. So minus 10 plus 400. And the resistance is 100. So you're going to have an answer of 400 or 440. Let me double check. That seems off. 440. So you're going to get 440, take away 10, so 430 over 100. You're going to get 4.3, and the value for I is an amp. So there's those 4 questions that will allow you to rearrange and then substitute to solve the problem. Booklet 5 practice is now complete. Probably should start your assignment.